The new 1.3 update for Arma Reforger is a huge leap for this game, adding full-scale destruction, tons of vital balancing changes, a new Mortar gadget, and tons of other cool stuff. This game is definitely stepping further into Battlefield's territory of large-scale maps with destroyable environments. Let's see how it all works. Now, large-scale destruction is an often expensive and difficult feature to implement in a game, which means most devs don't even bother. But today that changes for Reforger. The 1.3 update adds destruction to all buildings and trees, which is very impressive considering just how many buildings and trees there are on a single map. Now, those last few pesky building campers preventing your team from capturing an objective can have their precious hiding spot blown to bits, provided that you have the right equipment anyway. While all the buildings are destructible, actually causing that destruction requires some pretty major firepower. When you're late into a match and both teams have attack vehicles, yeah, entire towns will end up leveled. But in the early game, a squad of infantry players probably won't have the supplies or firepower to even destroy a single building. Basically, the buildings have a ton of HP, you have to totally deplete that to make them collapse. Sadly, it's not incremental destruction, so Battlefield definitely has the fidelity edge here. To give you an example, I unloaded multiple rocket blasts and M320 grenades into this basic tiny house structure. Certainly more than I thought I would need to bring it down. And honestly, at first I was thinking like, is destruction on in this server? Is this building destroyable? What's going on? And this ultimately drove me down a rabbit hole, testing in-game master mode to see what weapons and gadgets could destroy things the best. First, I tested out the new mortars, which are incredibly effective against infantry and vehicles, but against buildings, well, it takes several direct impacts to blow up a building. A handful of mortar crew guys could probably take out a few buildings once they're all dialed in on the same spot, but as you'll see in a bit, that's much easier said than done. Next, I tested the big boy explosive AT mines. These guys will level a building with just a handful of mines, and the blast radius is pretty generous. That said, you're still going to eat into your base's supplies and your own inventory space, trying to carry enough mines just to cause any real damage. Honestly, with the equipment available in the early stages of a match, I think players are mostly going to end up causing some minor destruction as potentially secondary effects of prolonged firefights. It seems like it's just too much work as an infantry to intentionally take down structures as a tactical choice in the middle of combat right now. Once the armored vehicles enter the equation though, things get quite a bit different. In addition to being able to just run through trees, heavy vehicles can now drive into buildings and cause major damage. On one of the WCS servers I played before the update went live, it was actually easier to level buildings by ramming them than it was by using explosive ordnance. We basically leveled the whole town just by running into things, which also might be semi-realistic since bulldozers are one of the more popular demolition vehicles in real demolition situations.
They can't tell who's driving it, but there is someone inside.
You can just ram houses and they blow up, dude. That's sick.
But if you want something a little more explosives, helicopters are definitely the coolest and some of the most effective for destruction. An attack helicopter can quickly level individual buildings with targeted fire via their missiles. Basically, if the enemy team has an attack helicopter and they know your position, expect your position to get blown to bits. I'm really curious to see how on modded servers the new destruction mechanics get balanced out. Modded servers tend to vary wildly in terms of their balance and design. Destruction being utilized as a mechanic for sure will lead to a lot of new crazy mod experiences. Hopefully they manage to find a middle ground between pacing and pure chaos. And I say this because, well, unfortunately, I don't think the official servers have got the balance quite there yet. And while I can appreciate them needing to make concessions so that towns and buildings aren't just instantly reduced to rubble at the start of a match, it still feels quite excessive to need a stack of anti-tank mines just to blow up a shack on the side of a road. And considering that each tree can have its own destruction mechanics, it seems like buildings could be set to have more granular destruction, kind of like Battlefield, blowing out walls until the health reaches a low enough level that the whole thing comes down. Right now, it seems like buildings just have two global stats, intact and destroyed, and not really a good representation to tell how close one is to actually coming down. It's still a very cool upgrade for a Reforger that makes the world feel far more real and responsive, but also it's hard to be overly impressed when Battlefield games from like 17 years ago with Bad Company had more impressive destruction than this. Now, the mortars are the cool new gadget in this update, and they're actually quite neat to see how much depth can be added by a single gadget. You can't just throw a mortar system down, click on a spot on the map, and start launching a barrage of destruction. First, you have to deploy the mortar, then you need to find your position and your target's position. Then you need to use a range-finding ruler to measure the distance and angle to your target. Then you have to arm yourself with mortar rounds, then you have to launch them, correcting for recoil between every single shot. Oh, and you're almost certainly trying to hit something that's so far away you can't even see or hear the projectiles land, which means you're 100% relying on your teammates to confirm your hits. Honestly, this is super cool in the sense that it's highly realistic and that a well-coordinated and well-trained squad could do a lot of work with these devices. That said, I'm sure it's going to limit just how many people actually want to try using them in the first place, since you're just sitting in a spot launching mortar rounds, hoping for audio confirmation that you did something cool. I think I'll be more on the spotting end of the system, telling crews where to fire and where they're hitting. But being able to hit enemies from a distance has been sorely lacking in Reforger until now. Being able to harass enemy bases and soften up their fortifications opens up so many new ways to attack entrenched enemies, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how this meta evolves. Now, one of the less sensational but equally important updates in 1.3 is a total overhaul to the game's equipment balance. There's now rank restrictions on all of the gear in the game, and while a lot of gear is unlocked by default, you'll now need to rank up to equip things like explosives, specialized backpacks, and better camo uniforms. Which isn't really a huge deal for players invested in the long haul of a match. Playing the objective should get you lots of XP quickly, so it shouldn't be too hard to get that higher level gear. The big benefit of these new rank restrictions is that players won't be depleting all of their team supplies at the start of a match, kitting themselves out with tons of gear. They'll actually have to play for a while to unlock the expensive gadgets now. And it should really even out the economy and overall pacing of a match. Now, I gotta say, this 1.3 update is pretty massive for Reforger, showing that the devs aren't afraid to evolve things in really significant ways. Honestly, I can't think of any games that were like, hey, let's add destruction to all of our buildings after launch. It's kind of wild considering how much it can change the gameplay. And it makes me wonder just how far the devs are planning to push this game, and also how the heck is the next Arma game gonna compete with Reforger if it keeps getting all of these amazing features? I'd be curious to know your thoughts on the 1.3 update. Have you played it yet? What do you think about Reforger's evolution, and what features might you want to see in upcoming patches? Let me know in the comments, and if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to drop me a like, subscribe for more content like it, and up next, check out this video on Half-Life 2 RTX and the remix tools available. This truly feels like the future of remastering video games, and anyone can do it. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. This is Level Cap, signing off.